Good morning. My name is Laurel Frischman, and I have the pleasure of being the worship associate for this UU Coastside Community Service today. Welcome, everyone. If you are here for the first time, if you're curious about our faith, welcome. If you've been here before or you're a longtime member, welcome back. Good to see you all today. All are welcome, whether or not you believe in God or a higher source, hold to humanist or secular teachings, if you come from another religion, or if you've always been Unitarian Universalist, you are welcome here. The UU Coastside community welcomes all people of all skin tones. The LGBTQ plus community, kids and mature folks, those with life challenges, and those temporarily without such challenges. For here, we are working to overcome our society's systemic biases. And you especially are most welcome here today. The Touchstones theme for March is respect. Today, Jenny Walter from Coastside Pride addresses mental health issues facing local LGBTQ teens. In celebration of today's National Namesake Day, March 7th, Jenny also talks about how layers of belonging, being seen, and claiming one's identity can be honored by the use of proper pronouns. After the service today, I hope you stay on Zoom to join our usual random breakout groups that will give us a chance to discuss thoughts from today's service. Or we can just gather and say hi to each other and reminisce about the bygone days of 2019. We want to thank UU San Mateo for administrative and professional support, and in particular, the Reverend Ben Myers, a consistent source of valuable guidance for us. For financial donations to UUCC, we have options for both online and by check. For detailed instructions, see today's order of service or in the email announcing this service. Join us on March 21st as the Reverend Kirk Lodeman Copeland returns with a sermon entitled Reaching the Pinnacle, Respect. The pinnacle of human relations is reached through respect, characterized via our seventh principle. Without it, things fall apart. With it, so much is possible, but it seems absent from so much of contemporary life. Join us as we explore this important topic. And now, Tom Devine guides us in our opening hymn.
Good morning. Our opening hymn is a beautiful piece from the UU Teal hymnal. It's called There's a River Flowin' in My Soul. It's about finding your own self-respect by simply listening inside to your heart, soul, and mind. So I think it's appropriate for this service. And I just want to point out that this is the first hymn that we have recorded with voices from our new UUCC virtual choir. If you would like to sing with us in the future, please get in touch with me and be assured that all God's critters got a place in this choir. So now, please rise in body and or spirit and join us in singing, There's a River Flowin' in My Soul.
There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul. And it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my
And now, Brendan and Jason, please lead us in the lighting of the chalice.
Please join us in reading these chalice lighting words from Linda Lee Franson, The Pride Flame. We light this flame to ignite our hearts and minds, the spark of knowledge that enlightens, the shimmering hope that burns, the blazing love that engulfs our actions, the bonfire of our commitment. We light this flame for those who celebrate themselves, who fear, who hope, who persevere, who stand on the side of love for all. We light this flame for those who have been ridiculed, that they may find peace. For those who have fought to marry, that they may celebrate. For those who live in uncertainty in the world, that they may have hope. We light this flame to renew our commitment that no one shall ever again suffer for the right to love. We light this flame to celebrate our kaleidoscope of diversity, working, loving, and living on the side of love. For this, we light this flame. Now Laurel will lead us in sharing our joys and concerns.
Actually, Bill Hevlin will invite us to join us in the sharing of our joys and concerns via a video. Excuse me. And just to remind you, for upcoming services, if you have a joy or concern that you would specifically like us to read aloud and share with the group, please email us prior to the service.
One of the ways we create our beloved community is by sharing our own joys and our concerns with one another and finding support from our community. At this time, we invite you to click the chat button at the bottom middle of your Zoom window. That brings up a window in which you can type any joys or concerns. As you do so, we will hear Vera Vandershock play La Grima by Francisco Tárrega. In these times of reflection and renewal, let us remember that it remains important to reach out to one another when we feel the need, and to accept being reached out to. May we find comfort in knowing that we can share our joys and our concerns here among us.
May we hold with love and care the joys and concerns that have been shared publicly today, as well as those that remain unspoken in the recesses of our hearts. And now please join Tom and me in a responsive reading called It Matters What We Believe by Sophia Lyon-Fawes. Please join me in reading the italicized words.
Some beliefs are like walled gardens. They encourage exclusiveness and the feeling of being especially privileged.
Other beliefs are expansive and lead the way into wider and deeper sympathies.
Some beliefs are like shadows, clouding children's days and with fears of unknown calamities.
Other beliefs are like sunshine, blessing children with the warmth of happiness.
Some beliefs are divisive, separating saved from unsaved, friends from enemies.
Other beliefs are bonds in a world community, where sincere differences beautify the pattern.
Some beliefs are like blinders, shutting off the power to choose one's own direction.
Other beliefs are like gateways, opening wide vistas for exploration.
Some beliefs weaken a person's selfhood. They blight the growth of resourcefulness.
Other beliefs nurture self-confidence and enrich the feeling of personal worth.
Some beliefs are rigid, like the body of death, impotent in a changing world.
Other beliefs are pliable, like the young sapling, ever growing with the upward thrust of life. And now, with great pleasure, I introduce our guest speaker today, Jenny Walter. Jenny Walter is a practicing attorney and founding member and vice chair of CoastPride. Jenny was the first co-chair of the San Mateo County LGBTQ Commission and served on the commission for 5 years. She is a strong advocate in advancing LGBTQ equity in our public schools on the coast. Jenny, we are so happy to have you speak with us today.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me. I want to share why it's so important that I'm here today. You've helped me connect a little bit to my family history. It turns out my grandfather was a Unitarian, and I do have some fond memories of nursery school in New York City, where I went to nursery school and really learned to love to learn. So I want to thank you for that gift. And I also want to thank you for the gift of just inviting me to talk to you about CoastPride, because I'm very passionate about this organization and I'm really looking forward to telling you more about it. So I'm going to share my screen. So when Noreen contacted me and said, hey, could you do this presentation? I was just thrilled. And she said, could you come up with a snappy name for it? I thought, snappy name. I don't know that I can do that. And then it was terrific because I looked up the date of your service and I saw that it was Namesake Day, March 7th. So here we are on Namesake Day. And it got me thinking about what we do at CoastPride and what's in a name and the kind of labels we use, and how just as it matters what beliefs we have, it matters what words we use, and that words are very powerful. So I wanted to tie together that all together and talk about the theme of today, the respect, that is your theme for March, as well as the theme for Namesake Day, and tie it together and give you kind of an overview of CoastPride, some highlights, and a little bit about why we prioritize lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning intersex youth when it comes to our services. Our services are for everyone, but we do have a focus on priority on youth, and that'll become clear as I go through this presentation. So, and then at the very end, I'm hoping that you'll entertain the idea of joining us in some of our work together. So that's what we'll cover. And so, why today? Why this theme? Why National Namesake Day? It really ties into, for me personally, into gender identity and expression. And it also ties into sexual orientation for me. So when I think about gender identity and expression and how many of our community members are misgendered or mispronounced. I cringe and I hurt a bit in myself. And let me just give you some examples. I was at the Bank of America the other day, and I was in line, and the teller was going, ma'am, next, sir, next. And I saw that after I had left, that the person behind me was misgendered as sir. And, you know, I could just feel this pain that she felt as she was walking up. And, you know, she politely, you know, empowered and said, you know, I'm a ma'am, or whatever she said to correct the gender. But it's so easy for us to make assumptions. And when we mispronounce somebody, it's very easy for that to come from a place of just a mistake or not knowing. But then after a while, as it's repeated, there is a place in which it's felt as a place of malice. And so I wanted just to bring that to our awareness and tell you another story about misgendering that I experienced, which is my wife and I have a 17-year-old daughter, and we planned her birth and her in our couple, and we planned our family. I delivered Jessie, and when it came time to fill out the birth certificate, it didn't say parent 1, parent 2. It said mother, father. And since I delivered, I got mother slot, and Deb got father slot. And it's something we talk about in our family a lot, and we've joked around about it. But it matters, you know, to be seen and to feel a sense of who you are, and to be called by your proper gender and your proper pronoun. So I just wanted to say that's the kind of connection I wanted to make in this theme, and how important it is to give respect and to ask if you don't know what pronouns somebody's using. And it really ties to just being seen, a sense of belonging, and generally just living your authentic self. So now I'd like to introduce this poet who's pretty incredible. He does slam poetry. This poem that he wrote, as I understand it, impromptu, actually, on the stage, which is just marvelous in itself. And so he talks about, you know, not in these words, but living one's authentic life, and what does it mean, and who's doing the naming. And he captures the complexity of that, I think, in this poem of his. And so I'd love for you to just hear it. It's a lot of fun, and I want to thank Bruce in advance for playing it for us today.
They asked me if I had a gay poem, so I said, straight up no. My words don't deviate between straight lines. My poems don't mince their words or bend or make queer little observations. They asked me if I had a gay poem, so I answered honestly that no, I don't have any gay poetry. And even if unthinkably I did, what would that say about me? I mean, even presenting the question puts me in a precarious position. And how could I broach the subject with my own creation? Like, excuse me, poem, are you gay? Have you grown up contrarily to what I wanted you to say? I mean, I certainly did not write you that way. Was it something I said, something I did that turned you? Maybe I should have peppered your verses with sport, girls, and beer. Maybe as your author I deserted you. Or did another writer turn you queer? Okay, let's say hypothetically that this poem is gay. Maybe it's just a confused poem that needs straightening out. Maybe I could insert verses from Leviticus, speak over it in tongues, douse it in holy water, recite it the Quran, give it a beat, 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 boombox blasting in the street, batty poem for dead, rip up chichi poem and I shred. They asked me if I had a gay poem. And I answered no, but the truth is I didn't know until one of my very own poems stepped up and tapped me on the shoulder. It said, look here, Dad, author, I'm now that much bolder, and I'm not confused, I'm not alternative, and even though the words I choose to marry with make me different, it don't make me any less eloquent. I don't need to be overly elegant, maybe that's why I stepped under your gaydar, but why are you so afraid to embrace it? Face it, it's just another part of me, you can't erase it. The more you try to label me with your twisted synonyms, the more you say you hate the sinner and despise the sin, the more you try to clip my words and stifle my expression, the more I know it's you, not me, whose morality should be called into question. They asked me to read out a poem. They said, choose one of your strongest, choose one of your best, choose a poem that don't stand for any foolishness. They asked me if I had a gay poem. So I proudly said, yes. Thank you.
So I just love this poet because he really does capture a lot in this poem about who you are, who's doing the labeling, how you find yourself in your identity, how important it is that you're calling yourself who you are, you're saying who you are and living that life that is yours, that belongs to you, that is something that nobody can really take away in terms of who you are. Anyway, so I want to now switch gears a little bit. So I'm gonna share that screen again. So just bear with me a moment. And I want to take a moment to talk to you about CoastPride. So CoastPride is a really relatively new nonprofit on the coast. We're only about 2 years old. We have a volunteer board of 9 people, all equally passionate as I am in the work that we're doing. We are poised to maybe take a lot of what we've been doing, which is having a safe space online and gathering people pre-pandemic for educational programs at the library and other places on the coast. And we have the opportunity that we think we might be able to open up a community center in the near future where we can bring people together to drop in, socially gather, again, safely with COVID, and kind of invite our community to, all of us to do some programming around some of the 3 areas that are our program areas. So I want to just tell you a little bit about them. The first is health and wellness, and we've started our nonprofit with this focus, and we've created the opportunity to have groups that are facilitated by a licensed clinician for LGBTQ youth, and then separate groups for the caregivers of LGBTQ youth. So those programs are now continuing a little bit more in person now because it's a little more possible at a distance to do that. They did go online for a while. We are doing a lot of education and visibility type of work, and so that has been focused on equity, and we've been working with the school districts to adopt a proclamation for LGBTQ History Month in October, and we've partnered with the district and with our businesses in the city to have celebrations around LGBT History Month and educational events and some fun. That's in October. And we've also are working with the district, and the school board has adopted a equity policy and also now a sexual orientation and gender identity and expression regulation. So we're working closely with them and others in the community to implement that regulation and to focus on equity across all protected classes. So LGBTQ, disability, race and ethnicity, etc. We have a lot of fun in June Pride Month. We have a lot of activities, and even with the pandemic last year, we were able to do kind of a honk and drive-by parade from City Hall and hear some remarks from our civic and community leaders, including faith leaders. So we hope that that's something that might interest you in terms of working with us. And then the third area is really social reform, and that goes to what you have been talking about in your service, which is systemic reform and really addressing the root causes of why we have hate and why we have embedded in the fabric of our society so much homophobia and racialized justice concerns, and why we can address those types of things and the type of oppression together. So that's kind of a really quick snapshot of our services. And in terms of our priority for LGBTQ health and wellness, and especially youth, the reason has to do with some statistics that I want to share with you. And I want you to hear a little bit about directly from the youth about their experiences here on the coast. So I'm going to share with you quickly some statistics statewide and some statistics countywide. And I'm not going to read these to you because in the interest of time, I want to get to the youth voices. But as you can see, the rates of bullying and verbal harassment for students is very, very high. And 2 times more likely LGBTQ youth are going to report depression symptoms and chronic sadness. And their rates of suicidal ideation is very, very high.
Sorry to interrupt a bit. You're not actually sharing.
I'm not sharing. Ooh.
Sorry.
Bummer. I'm looking at it, but you're not. Oops. Okay. Sharing. So, so I just kind of went over briefly the statewide statistics, and I want to show you that that's true for our youth in San Mateo County generally. You'll see here that the LGBTQ Commission conducted a needs assessment of the county. And then right as I left the commission, I held a focus group here in Half Moon Bay at the library. We had about 80 youth and educators attend, and all of them echoed what this needs assessment said. And I just wanted to pull out some of these staggering statistics because I think sometimes we think, well, we're in the Bay Area, how hard can it be? And it is really tough. And we hear this from our youth. And it's why I think the urgency and the press has been for CoastPride to find a way to establish a community center and have a safe place that's not just online and occasionally in gatherings. So again, I'm not going to read these, but it's, it's one thing to look at statistics, but it's another thing to hear directly from the voices of our youth. And so Mason is an amazing young man who was very brave in telling a story before the school board when they were adopting the proclamation for October LGBTQ History Month. And I'm struck, you'll be struck too, that just as the poet Keith was talking about, maybe I should have sprinkled that poem with, what did he say? He said, boys and sports and these stereotypical male things, right? And you'll see that Mason shares how hard it was and is to grow up here and be into sports and yet not be in the kind of heteronormative category of a young boy coming up in sports. So I'm gonna, without further ado, ask Bruce if he could share Mason's story with you. So when Mason turned around, you saw him kind of turn around, he was actually facing Principal Nazar to engage him in how difficult it is. Because I think folks start to feel like, well, we've got kindness as our motto. A lot of the internal feelings that kids are feeling going through the school and the way that they don't feel that the authorities are really protecting them is really a culture shift that we're engaged in with working with this, the school board and the superintendent and the teachers, and we're bringing curriculum changes and trying to implement the SOGI policy. So we invite you to learn more about that and help us if you can. So at this point, I want to am I sharing my screen? I hope I'm sharing my screen. So I'm going to assume I am until somebody tells me otherwise. So I wanted to put this quote in and this picture, this artistic picture of James Baldwin, and you all had it at the beginning of your service, because I think, it's complex, right, to change the culture and to change people's hearts and minds, and to change their beliefs and to have them acknowledge what words they use. And really, I think James Baldwin kind of says it really well in terms of what at the heart of it is. It's not often ignorance. It's often the people's internal struggles and pain that cause them not to really see other people's pain. That sometimes it brings empathy, but other times it does not. And so I really like this quote, and like that he addresses what is kind of what can be the root cause of hatred, which I think is blindness. Pain is the pain, and also the blindness to our privileges as we move through the world. So really, it's very simple what our youth want. They want to be healthy, they want access to services, they want to be seen, they want to have a sense of belonging, they don't want to feel marginalized, they don't want to feel, as Mason described, they're part of the pack, and then suddenly as they come out in their sexual orientation or in their perceived sexual orientation, they get shunned and pushed out of the mainstream values of our community, which are great. They're sports, right? Sports is a big thing. It's always in our papers, and it's great, but we don't always acknowledge how it can be very difficult for a young person who's seen as an athlete and sees themselves as an athlete and then is shunned. So I think his story is really important to hear and really important to act on. So with that, I want to share one more story with you. This is Will's story, and he really eloquently describes what it's been like for him as a transgender person, and his journey in transitioning, and what it's been like for him in the schools here in Half Moon Bay.
Hi, my name is William. I'm 16 years old. My pronouns are he, him. Starting at like 4 years old to probably 11 years old, I grew up dressing very masculine, wearing my brother's clothes. Once I got into high school, it got harder to express myself the way I wanted to, because everyone was, the same. Everyone was either male or female, and I didn't know that there was, a difference or something other than just being male or female. So I was afraid of coming out, especially because I was a freshman at the time. And I also did my own online research. Every day when I got home from school, I just go to my room and do as much research as possible to make sure that this was really what I wanted. But then it went getting back into the social environment back at school, which was pretty hard after coming out, just because none of my friends knew, and I was kind of working on telling them one at a time. Dead naming was definitely a problem. Pronouns were a problem for a while. So I decided to switch to homeschool so I could gather myself and take a break and just take some time to focus on myself and not what other people thought. And ended up coming back to school sophomore year. And by that time, everyone knew who I was, so it was a lot better. Most or all teachers and staff should go through a SOGI training to become more aware of the students at my school that are like me, or that are trying their best to express their identity and sexuality. So not only can they go to organizations and their peers, they can also go to teachers and staff in case they might need someone to talk to, or just for help in general. My life now is a lot better. I would suggest to someone coming out now to seek help as soon as possible, because I remembered how hard it was to try to figure things out on my own. Just try your best to either find someone, maybe not online, because not everything could be, real online. If you know friends or organizations through school, then definitely use those. And of course, CoastPride, because CoastPride is always here no matter what, and we are totally open to talking to anyone about whatever they might need help with or what they're going through. And that's actually how CoastPride has supported me, because without it, I don't think I would be where I am today.
So Will mentioned dead naming, and so I want to make sure to describe what that is. That when Will came out as transgender and started transitioning and came out and said, "I'm Will," many people would refer to Will as their former name, and that's called dead naming. And it's a way of denying somebody who they are and not recognizing them and not honoring who they are. And it is something that I think that we don't always understand, even if there is a welcoming, supportive environment. It can be tricky for people who always knew the person as in the former name to make that shift. But when you're transgender, you feel when somebody is dead naming you. It is a way of punching you in the gut. It is a way of not seeing the person. So while it might be difficult to make that change, it's really critical that we all do that. And the other point that I wanted to address that he raised was, he talked about CoastPride as our CoastPride. And I really want to emphasize that CoastPride, while we might be just a volunteer board pulling things together with the community, we are partnering with everybody, with the businesses, the cities, the faith-based organizations, our nonprofits. And we are trying to make sure that CoastPride belongs to everybody. And he mentioned the SOGI training. That stands for Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity and Expression training. And so part of what CoastPride does is we bring services from over the hill or create them here. And the SOGI training he referred to was training by the Pride Center over the hill that we did. And we had over 30 people online listening to it and learning from it. And we intend to do more of those. So with that, let's see, let me just think I'm at the end. I wanted to really end with this quote because I believe the tagline that we have is that we're stronger together for CoastPride, and we really mean it. And the piece that that I wanted to emphasize is what Audre Lorde has emphasized in the past, which is that our silences don't protect us and they'll never protect us. And that it is really critical that we are all called upon to not be silent when we hear or see abuses. And so with that, I just want to end by saying, join us, do stuff with us. We can't wait to work with you. I mentioned the Equity Project, and Noreen pointed out the overlap between some of your work when it comes to the OWL program, the curriculum that you have from UU. And so that's a possibility through our Equity Project and the partnerships with the school district. We're also very interested in working with folks on our intergenerational videos. Young people are coming out earlier and earlier, and they have so much to teach us. And older, more mature adults have been through and came out in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. And we all just have so much to learn from each other. And so we are planning to do these intergenerational videos together. Would be great if you joined us on the June drive-in. We're really fortunate that the Catholic Church has invited us to use their field and do a movie night there. And it would be great if we had like a lot of volunteers from various faith-based organizations joining us with that and helping us out. So those are just a few ideas, and we would love to hear your ideas and work with you on them, because CoastPride is a community organically growing from the community in response to our needs for both LGBTQ people as well as allies. And so Kathy Howard on the board and Tom Maravilla are the two board members who are on the committee for volunteers. Please reach out to them. Feel free to call me and reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. And I really, truly appreciate this opportunity to be part of your service today. So thank you very, very much. And now I'm going to introduce an improvisation of We Shall Overcome, played by Shauna Pickett Gordon.
That was beautiful. And thank you, Jenny, for sharing your words and lessons so that we may fully and lovingly recognize each other. Now that we are moving forward into 2021, there seems to be a bit of normal light on the horizon, or so it seems. Many people are receiving the COVID vaccines, which should protect them or at least reduce the risk of severe symptoms should COVID invade. With masks still securely in place, we are starting to move around a bit more within the world, kind of like it used to be. With this, we can start to look forward to new beginnings, a fresh start with our lives, a renewed commitment to our values. One thing many of us have learned this past year is the much needed comfort we feel when we are able to connect with one another. Hugs may not be available quite yet, but a smile, a good word, or a beautiful song have become precious to us. The Coastside UU services have provided this comfort to many of the participants, and it is our hope for the new future that we are able to continue to provide wonderful moments of solace, peace, friendship, and support going forward. So we now take an offering. And so that UUCC may continue to shine its light on the Coastside community, let us take a moment now to exercise that all-important generosity of spirit with an offering that supports the mission and service of UUCC. For the generosity you display by being present here today, and the generosity of all those who support this community with their time, talent, with treasure, with trust, we thank you all most profoundly. As your generous spirit moves you today, please feel free to contribute what you can to UUCC, either by check or online. Please follow the instruction in today's order of service. While collections take place, let us take a few moments to hear Mo Robinson, sing Everything Possible, composed and arranged by Fred Small. Fred Small, in addition to being a singer-songwriter, is a retired Unitarian Universalist minister and still very active in climate advocacy. The song focuses on attitudes, mindsets, and approaches to life which underpin equity and acceptance. Loving and giving are particularly stressed, as is the importance of finding kindred spirits. A song full of good wisdom and advice. Please enjoy.
We have cleared off the table, the leftovers saved, washed the dishes and put them away. I have told you a story and tucked you in tights at the end of your knockabout day. As the moon sets its sails to carry you to sleep over the midnight sea, I will sing you a song no one sang to me. May it keep you good company. You can be anybody you want to be. You can love whomever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know I will love you still. You can live by yourself, you can gather friends around, you can choose one special one, and the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you'll leave behind when you're done. There are girls who grow up strong and bold, there are boys who are quiet and kind. Some race on ahead, some follow behind, some go in their own way and time. Some women love women, some men love men, some raise children, some never do. You can dream all the day, never reaching the end of everything possible for you. Don't be rattled by names, by taunts, by games. but seek out spirits true. If you give your friends the best part of yourself, they'll give the same back to you. You can be anybody you want to be. You can love whomever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know I will love you still. You can live by yourself, you can gather friends around, you can choose one special one, and the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you'll leave behind when you're done. Yes, the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're done.
And now Brendan and Jason will lead us in extinguishing the chalice.
We will now extinguish the candle flame. Please join us in reading these words by Elizabeth Selly Jones. Extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
This was a wonderful, informative, and educational service today. Thank you again, Jenny, for your inspirational words and life lessons. We want to acknowledge our first Sunday production team. Choir Director Tom Devine, with vocalists Linda Grace Frost, Gigi Cohen, Bill Hevlin, and Bruce Raffnell. Artistic Director Noreen Cooper-Hevlin, and our session management engineer, Bruce Raffnell. We also want to acknowledge beautiful music by Shauna Pickett-Gordon and Vera Vandershock. Thanks to all of them for participating in this timely service. And thank you for coming today. I hope you'll all join us in the breakout rooms immediately following. We would like the breakout rooms to be a safe place where we can talk openly and honestly about our topic today. We also want to remind people that what is said here stays here, but thoughts and concepts we learn and are inspired by can most definitely be shared. Please be thoughtful of the time so that anyone who wishes to speak has the opportunity to do so. And when we're in our sessions, we might want to contemplate a couple of questions. What is the history of your given name and what does it mean to you? What are some names others have called you and how did it make you feel? Is there a call to action you feel as you try to live your authentic self and step into the name you have acquired? In just a few moments, Bill will give everyone permission to unmute themselves. Have a very enjoyable and safe week.